cup at a time. Yeah, this is tea time. Yeah, making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time. Making a difference. One cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time.
Well, good morning. That's right. It is morning tea time, and Miss Liz is back. And today I have an incredible guest joining me from the United States. So we're going to do the disclaimer, and then I'm going to do a little intro with her bio, and then I will bring her out, and we will sit and spill some tea today, and we will get to know Jurema. I will get it right. But let's sit back and let's enjoy a good old tea time. Miss Liz's tongue is just a little woolly today. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz, myself, we are having some technical issues. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by Miss Liz myself is always brought forward in good faith, however, may bring forth dialogue and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at this given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participations are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to this discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where it may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about this disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in this show in any aspect, I myself, Ms. Liz, welcomes you. Should you decide that this show is not made for you at this time, I respect that wish and see you at a later show at a later date. So I'm going to bring the guest in and then I'm going to do her bio while she's sitting here. So if I have any trouble saying anything, then she can tell me if I'm saying it right or wrong. So I'm going to bring in Jurema. Did I say it right?
Jurema.
Jurema. I need the Jurema. So, Jurema, I'm going to just do a little intro. I'm going to read a little bit of your bio. And for anybody who would like to see the full bio, please check out Miss Liz's Tea Time Facebook page and LinkedIn, and you can find her full bio there. But Jurema Gorham Affirms Burst into Books is an organization that is rooted in instilling our children with the essential tools to grow academically. A lifelong learner, Jurema has taught professionally since 2008, working with grades K to 12, seeking inspiration along her professional career. Jurema stays in a student mode all the time. When she was pregnant with her son, she yearned for advancement in her career. So Jurema decided to pursue her first master's degree in educational leadership. She moved from elementary education to high school, teaching at her freshman level. So for more on Jurema, you can check out her full bio again at Miss Liz's Tea Times Facebook page or my LinkedIn page. So I'm going to turn it over to Jurema, and we will see what Burst into Books is all about this morning.
Thank you so much for having me, and I just appreciate this anytime to have conversation. So my platform, Burst into Books, really came from two places. As you read, I'm an educator, but I'm also a mother, and I'm here in Chicago. And part of I would say the main inspiration behind Burst into Books is just creating a space for all children to fall in love with reading. When I was maybe I would just say, as long as I remember, like I've always been intrigued with reading and the arts, and it's because of the exposure that I was given as a young child. And so when I had my own son, I wanted him to be a part of as many different programs that I could and get him a part of. And reading and going to programs that were representative of him and our community was really hard. We had to travel a lot outside of our neighborhood. There was not a lot of programs that I felt like he and his friends would just be engaged and be excited about. And so we actually, me and a few moms came together and was like, why don't we start a book club? Right. And so Versus a Books organization actually started with just that idea of having a book club. And so having this book club allowed us to be able to bring in other families and other educators to help make it come together. And since 2018, we've been doing that. And we've also, from that idea, have grown into a full nonprofit that not only does book clubs, we do community events, we host author talks. I'm having a big festival at the end of this month. And again, it's all with the whole original passion of creating spaces for children to fall in love with reading.
So where did you get the name Burst into Books?
So actually, that was a name that one of my best friends helped me come up with. When we first started the book club, it was just not one. We have four different groups, and so I remember having a conversation with my friend, like, okay, we can't just call it the book clubs. Like, we got to think of a
You
cool
gotta get
name.
something in here.
Right, like, what could be the name? And she sent me a list of about five different names, and I actually polled the families. Like, I asked them, like, hey, out of these names, which sticks out to you? And every person, if they picked two, one of them was always Burst into Books. And so I said, you know what? That's our name. We're Burst into Books, and it really fits into what we love to do, which is really make reading come to life. So the moment I heard that name, I'm like, you know what? That is the name.
Well, I like it because it's burst into education, right? Burst into the books.
Yeah,
Get
yeah.
into it. Like really just the word burst is just like it. Like, let's
It's a
just do
lot in
this.
the name. Yeah, yeah.
So you started this in what year again? Can you
2018. So we're going into
2018?
our fourth year. Yep.
And you have donated books, I believe.
Yeah. So another big part of again that access is having accessible books for all families and schools. And so we started off even with the book clubs asking for donations because I wanted families and kids to be able to not just come to book club, but they can leave with books. And so we get donations from a variety of places, whether that's for grants or schools or families in the neighborhood are like, hey, we have books that maybe our children have outgrown. We would love to give. And then we repurpose them. We bring them to our events. We have people that reach out to us. Like we have a bunch of back to school events that's coming up in a couple of months, and schools are like, "Hey, can we have some books?" And so we set up a table and we allow free of charge for families to get books so that they can really help build their home libraries.
Oh, well, that's really cool. So when you have these donations, do you have like an event to gather these donations or?
So we have events, right? So any event we have, people can bring books. I'm actually sitting right now in 2020. We were able to purchase a building, so I'm actually in my building
Oh,
right
wow.
now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So we have people who are like, hey, we have book donations and we'll coordinate times for them to come and drop off books. So it's, we collect them at events, but then we also have opportunities for people to come by and bring us books.
Oh, that's really cool.
Thank you.
So what do the kids think of burst into books when they hear that?
You know what? It's so funny because I really believe that our families and children love our programming just because we design it around them, right? And so even with our book clubs, kids that come, they love it because it's not just like come in and read and talk, but we have guest authors that come at every session. We make sure we have interactive activities for every book that they have. They help us in selecting the books that we read. So many of the books that we read are suggestions from them because again, if you want to get kids engaged, like have them be a part of the planning, right? So they'll
Exactly.
help us pick what the book should be of the month, and everything. They don't come. It's not like a boring space, and so I believe that has been like our magic pill to helping kids when it comes to reading because a lot of times when we are trying to get kids engaged, we're trying to force them to do something, whether it just being in community, them helping us to to find out what it is that they love so that we can help them see how reading is a part of that.
Well, I find when we include the children, right, they're more engaging too. As they're not like, oh, I have to do this. But when you let them do it on their own, I find that they engage more.
Yeah, yeah. And then when you just allow, I think sometimes as adults we're scared to just let them lead, right? Like,
Where are we
this is
going with this one?
right, but I mean, like, this is, I mean, even me as, my background is in education, like, I co-created the learning experiences with my students, right? It wasn't like, okay, I'm the only one who comes to this space with knowledge that has something to say. Like, no, allow them to be a part of the conversation, allow them to have times where they actually take the reign and you're more of a facilitator of learning, not like the forcing it down their throats. And so I think that when you create spaces where all of us have opinions that matter, and then also that we all have lived experiences that can help this topic come more alive, you get more engagement because kids are like, you know what, my voice matters in this space.
Yeah. I like that message. My voice matters. It's really strong. It's a strong message out there. And especially for our children, we have to really encourage the children that they do matter, and their voice does matter. And like you said, we are scared of letting them lead. Even our own children were like, "Ooh, where are we going with this one?" And they're like, "Trust me, mom." And I'm like, I don't know about this, but let's go with it, right? Let's go with the flow. It's
Yeah,
like that Mother's Day morning, right? When they bring you like their homemade breakfast when they're so small, like you have like Fruit Loops Cheerios and you got a raw egg and everything, and they're just creating, right? So you just like
yeah.
take a bite. I love it.
And in them creating their learning, right? And
Yeah,
so to that point, my son, he has got this, like, my mom loves to cook, so I know that's where he gets it from. I like to cook here and there, but he loves to cook, and so he'll come to me like, "Mom, let's do this recipe," and I'll get the stuff and just allowing him to read through it and do it himself. And even if I'm watching him, like, oh, he shouldn't have poured that first, it allowing him to make those mistakes. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because what ends up happening is then he's like, oh, ma, I shouldn't have did that. Right. So then when you do it again, you're not going to make the same mistake again because you actually did it versus me every moment wanting to interject like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Like sometimes it's through taking those risks that they actually can
But I think
learn.
that's like a parental instinct, right?
Yeah. It is a
Yeah.
parental instinct, but I think
But it's like
that
a
when we
parental
want,
instinct, right? Like we're like, no, you know? Yeah.
it is an instinct, but
So
I think that we
do you,
also we can stunt learning when we want to dictate every part of the process.
now would burst into books, do you do recipe books with the kids?
So really, really interesting question. We don't actually, but we do
Oh,
have a farmers market that we hold here, and so and the reason that farmers market came around was because I'm really big about holistic
yeah.
health, and so just as much as I care about your education, I care about your well being, and if you are not healthy, you're not even in the right space to be able to learn. And so what we did start doing with the farmers market is that we did start doing some virtual cooking classes. So we would take some of those things that we are selling at the market or growing in our garden and actually would do cooking classes. So a recipe book might be on the horizon, but we don't have it yet.
I just planted a seed.
You did plant a seed.
Yeah, because I find that recipe books are a challenge to read, especially for the younger children, right? Because they see the numbers and then they see the words and they're like, "Oh, what is this? Like, is
Hmm.
this a
Hmm.
math question?" Like, and then the science of the mind and everything. Even as adults, sometimes I look at a recipe and I'm like, "What? How do I do? What? You want me to do that? You want me to sift? You want me to do that in that bowl and then that bowl? Like, what's the difference? Put it all in one bowl,
Right,
you know?"
right, right.
But I really enjoyed the topic burst into books because bursting, we don't hear that word enough, you know? And for the listeners out there that are listening, we are talking with Jurema today, and we are talking about burst into books. So if you'd like to know more about her, please check out her website. It is listed here. And for anyone who is listening to the audio play of this tea time, you will find all of her information in the description box. So you will be able to find her. If you can't find her, you ain't looking. So, or you can reach out to me, Miss Liz. So, Dreama, I want to get into a little bit on you as an individual. What was it so important about reading and education for you as a little girl?
Um, I, I think that education for me has always been something that I've been drawn to because I'm just a naturally curious person, right? And so I always, when I was younger, I asked a lot of questions and I always wanted to kind of understand the background behind things. And what my parents and my family would do is that they would just kind of push me to want to learn more so that it was in a book, right? So we would go to the library and we would, explore, and then they would take me to museums and just always explore. Like my grandma, I attribute a lot of my love for like reading and the arts to my grandmother because she was really big about like if it was a cultural festival, taking us to that, or if there was some kind of play, I would go to a play. And so I just my curiosity and then my love for stories just all kind of came together. And so it made me want to love reading and in turn I love school because I got to read. And so I didn't look at reading as a punishment or chore. It just was a part of my everyday. And so I early on learned that, I can learn so much about the world and never get on a plane, right? Like I could read a book and learn so much about what's happening around me. And naturally it made me want to travel and do these other things. And so when I always loved working with children, and so I knew I wanted to do something with that. But when I was younger, I wanted to be a pediatrician, and I think it went to
Oh,
that whole idea of like helping kids and helping families. And I loved my pediatrician growing up too, so that probably was a part of it as well. And then as I kept going on, I later got a job tutoring and I really loved tutoring. And so I later found out, like, you know what, actually, this is more of my draw. And so, ironically, I became a science teacher over time. But
oh,
right, so I think that whole like love of science and teaching and all of it meshed together. And so, I think I bring all that up because a lot of times when we are parents, we're trying to figure out how do we get our kids to love reading. And it wasn't because I was in a house full of a bunch of books, but I became a house full of a bunch of books because my family just took me places and explored, and it made me have opportunities to explore the world. And because of that, it made me want to read more and it made me want to understand more what was around me. We this was before like YouTube and all these different things. So if you had to find out, you had to actually go and research it and find it. So that is what helped to build my home library. And so I try to do the same thing with the kids in our program and even in my classroom. Like naturally kids are curious. So you just
yeah.
have to continue to put things in front of them that they will want to learn more. You don't have to force them to learn. They want to know why, right? If you think about it, when they were younger, it was probably the thing that drove us crazy, but they're like, why? Why? Why?
Oh,
Why?
that famous why.
But a lot of times we want to shut down their whys, their
Yeah.
curiosity, and then we're mad when they don't want to read and they don't want to do things. Well, you're shutting down that curiosity, and so I think for me, reading is just about getting the answers to your questions. You know.
And you kind of surprised me, Jurema. When you said science teacher, I was like, I didn't think that's where she was going. So you kind of shocked me. I was like, "Ooh, science teacher! I got a science teacher on tea time here." So, what is it about science that really intrigues you?
Same thing. I when I first started teaching, I started in kindergarten. And kindergarten, because I love the kids, like the little kids. I'm like, ooh, they're just naturally curious, right? And I got an opportunity the following year to teach middle school. When I got to middle school, many of we are departmentalized here. I don't know if it's the same way in Canada. So you have like four different teachers. So you have a teacher that
Yeah.
teaches reading or math and all that. And so not many people wanted to do science, and I took the challenge, like, okay. But then I actually ended up realizing that I love science because of that. Science is everyday life, so it was easy for me to be able to teach a topic that helped kids just explore their everyday, like we're reading this in the textbook. Like this is where you see chemical reactions. Like did someone cook breakfast this morning? Guess what? You just saw a chemical reaction happen. You know what I mean? Or just like helping them understand that what you're reading here you do every day, and it's just a matter of you better understanding why those things happen. And so again, people are shocked when they learn that, my trade is science, but science is filled with reading, right? So you
Yep.
have to be able to comprehend and context clues, and a lot of the terminologies are the same. I would help my kids on like compounds in science, compound in words, same thing, two things mixed together. Like just being able to understand that all these things are universal. And so science for me is just again an opportunity for people to understand that the point that we're even able to talk right now is science, right? And it's just you
Yep.
breaking down how does that happen, and then that's when people become interested, because guess what? Me learning that knowledge is going to help me make better decisions about my everyday, because now I have more answers to my questions. So yeah, that's where the whole science comes in.
Well, you should have guessed science. You're a cook, right? And it's like you said, like adding the ingredients for the cake and that. I should have it should have clicked in.
It's
She's a
okay.
science teacher. I've never had a science teacher on tea time, so I'm a little excited, guys.
Oh yeah, ask me anything. I love it. I love it.
And I actually love science because I love the research. I love trying to understand why this and this, why that rubs and that makes this outcome. And then you put these two together and it's like, oh, don't do that again, you know? Uh, so I want to get into a little bit more on the bursting into books. So it's been since 2018. So what kind of things do you have coming for the viewers and listeners out there to look forward to? And is this only in the United States? Are you looking at doing global? Are you global? Um, yeah, let's just dig into this. Burst into books.
Yeah, let's get into it. So, as far as here in Chicago, we definitely have a lot of programming. At the end of this month, I have a huge literary festival that I'm hosting on July 30th, where we're going to have authors from around the city and actually some that are flying in. Our guest author is a really well known children's author. Her name is Jacqueline Woodson. She's coming here from New York. We have just different workshops and engaging spaces for kids. And again, it goes live performances, but it goes back to the whole idea of like reading and the arts coming alive. So that's what this space will be. So if you want to learn more about our festival, if you're in the States or will be in Chicago or want to come to Chicago on that day, it's going to be an awesome, awesome day. But the cool thing is, the last 2 years with the pandemic, really opened my eyes more into like what Burst into Books can do and where we can be. And so the last couple of years, many of our things has been virtual. And because of that, it's expanded our audience. And so even for instance, our book club was virtual, which allowed us to have kids from all different cities and even a few different countries that could participate. And then our guest authors were from other places as well. And so we've had some international authors who have been guests because all they had to do was log on, right? And so when they logged on, the kids is talking to someone who's in the Virgin Islands or who's in Africa, or who's in London, and it just, I think, helped all the more our mission of kids just seeing like, man, this is a universal thing, right? So storytelling is something that happens all over the world. And so because of that, even though things are starting to open up a little bit more, I'm still keeping that component. So we will
Yeah.
have virtual spaces, we will have opportunities for, even though our book club is in person, people can live stream in, right? It's been really cool to just see how innovative we can become when we're limited to being in one space, right? So
But
I
you're a science teacher. Anything is possible, right? We can get these components to join, right? Connect the dots. Like
exactly
anything is possible. We have
anything,
science.
anything. The fact that we're even having this conversation, I was like, I did not know you were in Canada. That's amazing to me. I think just even that just shows, 3 or 4 years ago, we wouldn't have even imagined this type of thing, right? But now
Yeah.
it's the norm, and we're able to just log on to a StreamYard or Zoom, and we can have the world at our fingertips. So I'm really excited about the development of where things can go.
Well, I think that's what the pandemic has really taught all of us, right? Is that we can connect through different countries, different communities, and families now with
Yep.
technology. We can use technology in good ways and connect and really brand and grow. Uh, it is truly amazing. Like I look at the pandemic as a time of growing and planting a lot of seeds in different
Right.
areas. that we
Yep,
would have never been able to had it not been for the pandemic.
very true. Very true.
So you have taught from kindergarten to grade 12. What is your
Mhm.
favorite grade of teaching?
Oh, that's so difficult to say. Um, I love them for different reasons, different. But I would say the grade that I've loved the most, that not many people tend to say they love, is middle school.
Oh, that is surprising because a lot of teachers are
I don't
struggling
like
through middle
middle
school.
school.
They're like, that's where the attitude starts coming in. That's where,
And it's so
kids
funny
are turning
because
for teenagers and
yeah, and my son, he'll be in sixth grade this year. And so it's so funny for teaching middle school for a number of years, and parents will be like, oh my gosh, I could just see the shift in a year, right? From this fifth grade to middle school. And it's because so much is happening inside of a child, not just outside of a child, right? So inside we got puberty going on, we got hormones, we got
yeah,
cognitive stuff happening, we got all these things happening on top of you're in a new grade level, right? And so now you school is getting harder, things are getting more complicated. And so I like middle school because I feel like it is a transitional time of life. I feel like it's the time where
it's
kids are really trying to find who they are. And it's not just about, you know, do the teacher like me or do my friends like me? They're trying to figure out everything. And I love just not just teaching middle schoolers, but talking to middle schoolers because middle schoolers are just really trying to figure out
figure
themselves,
themselves out, right?
and so that it's an interesting time. It's a time
Yeah.
where yeah, you got some attitudes, but it's not because they just want to be mean. I mean, you'll be frustrated too if you didn't understand what was happening to your body and everything else around you. So you probably would be a little upset as well as a middle schooler. So I give them grace. I understand the middle school time of life.
Well, it is, right? It's a transition. And I don't know how it is in the United States, but in Canada, they usually go to a different school. So that's a
Mm,
whole different transition as well, right? Because you're in elementary school and then you go to middle school and it's a whole new look,
yeah,
a new building, new teachers, new friends. It's a lot of transitioning time. So that I give them a high five for the attitude because I'd be like, yeah, I can't do this. Like I want to go back over there, you know?
exactly, exactly.
So
So,
and their whole body's changing,
everything.
communication's changing, like the whole environment has changed, right? So I don't know if that's how it is in the
and,
United
and
States.
we start treating them differently, right? Like I know
Exactly,
that
right.
even for my son, so as a parent, I'm like, okay, I get it, and as a teacher, because he's like, look, I'm the same little kid that a couple of years ago you all wouldn't let me do anything, and now 2 years later y'all think I should know everything, but then you get mad when I act like I know everything. Like, what's going on? So they're really trying to figure out, like, am I a kid or am I an adult? Like, which one am I?
Yeah, because one day we want them to know everything and then the next day it's like, no, you don't know
Right? You
it.
don't know anything. What are you doing?
But 2 days ago I knew everything, you know. And I think it's a lot of adjustments for parents as well, and being a parent and working with students all the time, that's got to be hard as well because then when school is done then you have to go home, right? So there's a lot of
Yeah.
adjustment. I find that teachers don't get enough credit. They are the hardest workers out there worldwide. Like teachers are the heroes. Like they go through a lot,
And it's
and I
never
want to really
off, and it's never an off button. I think that's the thing that I will always explain to my friends. And now that I am doing now this full time, but I still work in schools and I'm always around kids and families. It's just like understanding that certain jobs you get to clock out. You know what I mean? As a teacher, you don't clock out. Even when you're not teaching, I'm grading or I'm planning or I'm, thinking about the conversation I had at school about my kids that I'm gonna see in the morning. You're never off. And so I think
yeah,
that summer, like, oh, you get the summer off, but like even then, that's not really rest. It's an opportunity to not be all the way on, but you still are on. And so I think that, as you said, teaching is such a, and it's not just about teaching. Like, they're therapists, they're big
yep.
sisters, there's so many different things. And so yeah, the teaching profession is definitely what I realize is I think an American thing, to be honest, because in reading and in traveling, there are spaces where teaching is a very revered profession. right? Like people do understand that teachers add to society and are really big to what's happening.
Oh,
I think that you know the lack of respect in some cases is more location, not universal. I've realized.
oh, well, that's really interesting that you mentioned that because I feel the same way that some countries are giving to teachers really high value. And other countries, it's just like, well, you're just a teacher. Well, yeah, but I'm a teacher that's working with your child, and then I have to go home and work with my child. And like you said, summertime is not really summertime because you're planning for the next year. You're preparing for the next session and the next season with the new set of children, and students. So, for a message for the children that are listening to Tea Time and that will watch the replay later, what message do you have for them about Burst into Books?
That Versatile Books is really an organization that was designed with every child in mind. Just that my initial statement is that your voice matters, and so I really try to help students, and whether I'm in the schools with students or just like our readers in our program, understand that books are just people telling their story, right? Like they had an imagination and this character came to life to them and they wrote a story about it. Or historical fiction is just someone telling their story. And so again, your story matters. And so I try to encourage them to know like your story matters. You should be an author. You should write a book. You should, tell your story, whether you feel like writing your story, rapping your story, reciting your story, acting out your story. If you are in technology, creating a video about your story, like your story matters. And so letting students know like we're just reading someone else's story, but eventually the world needs to hear your story too.
Oh, I love that. I really love the way you put that out there because it is true, right? We read other people's stories, but at one point we have to put our story out there because our voice does matter. I really love that. That's a really strong message out there for all of the listeners and viewers that are watching. Please put in the comments where you're tuning in from because I'd love to hear where you're tuning in from. I want to thank Caroline, my ambassador sister from South Sudan. She is joining us, and amazing lady. I will hook you two ladies up because she also works with students. She's also, I believe, a teacher or an educator in South
Oh,
Sudan. So I
awesome.
want to connect you. She does have a school as well that I think that she's helping out. So I think maybe some of the books might help the kids over there in South Sudan. So this is what we do: is we connect through tea, right? We spill the tea and we connect and make a difference in the world. So I want to get into what is your tea, Jurema?
Yes, yes, yes. So I was like, I don't want to take hers, right? Teaching education.
It would be okay. I would be okay with
You'll be
sharing
okay
it
with it.
if that's what it was.
I
But
couldn't
I
think
want
of
it.
nothing else. I was like, I think that's what I do. Like I teach educational awareness. So I would say that's my tea. Like my tea is, I think, along with that, like with teaching educational awareness, is that it's really about teaching in a way that your everyday life is lessons, right? And so I'm always a big proponent of like showing the relationship in education, not like education just stops in the classroom. And so that's my tea. Like I believe in every day I learn something new, and I'm not always in a classroom, right? And so I think that it's important that we understand that learning doesn't end when school is out. Learning didn't begin when school started. Also, that reading doesn't end when I close a book. Like I read all the time. Like I'm surrounded by stories and literature, and the news and music is, telling me all the time. So I think reshaping how people view how you learn, right? I think is my tea. Like being able to show people that you know, just because I didn't necessarily go to school for this thing doesn't mean that I'm not an expert in this thing. And also, just because I went to school doesn't mean that I stopped learning, right? So, I'm always in student mode, as I said in my bio, because I believe that every day, if I don't look for it, I'm going to miss the lesson I'm supposed to learn that day. So, I think we're learning all the time.
Well, I like the word reshaping. We don't hear that word enough. You know,
Hmm.
I think that's an important word. Also, reshaping. Like I wrote down here, reshaping your tea. Life lessons. So for
Hmm.
you, you mentioned teaching educational awareness, and I'm okay with you taking that tea because that is exactly who
Thank
you are.
you. Thank
We
you.
There's not only just one teaching educational awareness T out there. There is many different T's out there. And for Jurema, that is her T. And I'm okay with sharing that T
Thank
because
you.
that is exactly who you are, right? Because as a little girl, you loved teaching. You were into the, where could I learn? How you were curious, and
Mhm.
educational awareness, like you're in the educational system right now in the present, and the awareness for the future of staying connected with the book, staying connected with reading, staying connected with science, cooking, recipes, and stuff like that, and growing. So that is your tea. Like, and I love it that I'm sharing it with a science teacher because I love science. So
Hey,
I'm just like that little goofy girl, right? Oh my God, science teacher. I always liked the science fairs, like, when we could experiment and we could create things, and the friction and the components and stuff like that. So
yes.
that always got my attention. Like, how does that work? How come that if you rub that and rub that together, then oh my goodness, look at that, you
And
know?
changing variables, right? Like, oh, it works this way, but will it work when I do it this way? All that stuff.
Yeah, and then if I do it this way, oh,
Right.
you know?
And then we just write a conclusion. We just don't do it again. We just won't do that again.
Yeah. But if you don't try, you don't know, right? And I think that's what
Exactly.
science really teaches us is if we don't try, we won't know.
Yep.
If we try a little bit of this, okay, that gives us a better result. If we put a little bit less, that gives us less of a result. So science is really important. I find that that's one of the educational classes that I find that is not really out there. We don't hear a lot of science teachers talking or talking about experiment or stuff like that. Even like with medical stuff, we don't hear the science behind it. Like, why does this and this have to work together? How does that result in this? So
And the
yeah, I'm
sad
really
thing is that, you know, when we stop exploring, we stop advancing, right? So I don't, we hear a push all the time in America that there's not enough people in STEM education, or there's not opportunities. Like, a lot of us outsourcing our work and all these different things. But at the end of the day, like you said, when we go back to education, I would say, I'll just speak for us here in America, here in Chicago, science is like a secondary subject. You know what I mean? Like, reading and math is what we kind of really push up. Science is, just kind of throw that in for 30 minutes here and there. But however, everything about our world, even what we're doing right now, it took someone who had innovation,
yeah,
who put together their background when it comes to building a computer, to create a program that now allows us to do this. Like, if we had no science, we would have lost communication during these last few years. And we need kids to have opportunities to explore and test out, because guess what? We need to go beyond this. Like, there needs to be something beyond this, and the only way we can get beyond that is if we're preparing kids to do it. But I think that, unfortunately, there's not a lot of investment in it, which is sad, because I mean, even a pandemic, we need people to create medicine and and vaccinations and all these different things. And if we don't have the science behind it, then we're
exactly.
not going to survive. So
Yeah, there isn't enough out there, right? And children that are listening and watching Tea Time, if you'd like to be a science teacher, then get your education. We need more science teachers out there. Yeah, even in Canada, I find that there's not enough science teachers, and we never hear from science teachers. So I'm just going all science geek here
it's all right. I
because
love it too.
I
I love it all.
because I think that we need to really open the minds, really get involved. You know, get connected, touch things, feel it, textures. I know with science, touching is, the friction, rubbing your hands together, that's science, tapping is science. It all works together, and we need to start really opening that mind and that conversation on what intrigues you about science, what scares you about science, because some people are scared of science. Why are they scared of it? Is it because they don't know it, they don't understand it? Well, let's teach, let's educate you on it. Don't be afraid of it. If you don't try, you don't know, right? so
No.
so I want
And
to
we end up, like, history repeating things, because
exactly, right.
science is about patterns and data. And like, even when, not even just with the pandemic, because I think that's just like the most recent thing, but just even in everyday decisions, science is their job is to research and to test and to test and test. And the reason is so that you can make more educated decisions the next time. And so I think a lot of times we live in a world where we should have free choice and there should just be, you do what you want, and that's true, but you should also understand the consequences with it, right? Like you could be able to do whatever you want, but do know when you do this is probably what might happen, right?
Yeah,
And for whatever reason, we don't want to know the possible outcomes, but that allows you to make better decisions and it allows you to see like why things are shifting in the world, weather, climate, I mean, food, all these different
exactly.
things. If we, even making policy changes, like if you actually put this into effect, we've seen when you do this becomes the outcome. So I think just I don't know. We're in a world where we like to be like, I'm my own boss. I like to make
Mm,
our own decisions, and we
yeah,
feel like science and information is limiting. But I
yeah.
believe it just gives you more possibilities of what could happen, and you just decide which one you want to do. But don't act like the evidence isn't there, though.
Well, right, and it's like making a choice. There are consequences. Like you're making this choice. You better be ready for that consequence.
Exactly.
It's just like education. If you really want to pass that test, you got to study for that test. You have to take the responsibility and ownership of that growth and of that change and that choice. you know I find that today's society is a lot of people are like, I have freedom of speech, I can say what I want, do what I want, but I don't care about the consequence. Well, you know what? There's a consequence for everything that you do. There's a choice,
Everything.
So
I
there's
just tell
that,
my kid, I just tell my kids all the time. There's consequences for action and inaction, right? Like you can be like, I'm not going to do anything, and there's a consequence for that, right? And there's a
right?
consequence for if you do something. So the whole idea of like, well, I'm just not going to do anything. Okay, but there's something that's going to happen because we didn't do anything, right? So
Exactly.
everything has a consequence.
Well, it's that the negative and positive, right? And that's in science a lot, negative and positive. If you add too much positive, well, you're gonna, ooh, yeah, that's a little bit too much. You get volcanoes. So I want to get into a little bit more on the bursting into books. You have an event coming up July 30th. If you could tell the listeners out there a little bit more about that event and how they can tune in and how they can help support that event.
Yes, so if you visit our website, if at the very top there's the Wow Lit Fest, it stands for Words of Wonder Literary Festival. That's on July 30th. It will be from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Standard Time here in Chicago. That festival is going to be a day. That's like a yearly event for us. So if you're not able to come this year, hope you can join us next year. But at that event, we're going to have live performances from local artists. We're going to have writing and illustration workshops. We have a youth and family area. We will have wellness and resource areas. We have authors that will have their books there for sale. We also will have food trucks. It's just a whole day of celebration. And so I really wanted to have a space where kids could come and their thing is there, right? So I'm about all the different ways reading is possible. We got storytellers, we got dancing, we got books, we also have illustration. Maybe your child is really into comics and graphic novels. We have that, poetry. We have poets performing. I just want them to just see like what's the thing that's gonna click for them. And when it clicks, they'll want to continue to do it, right? And it is curated for all ages. We have an adult writing workshop because I believe parents, we can sometimes start losing our daydreaming and imagination. It doesn't stop when we get older. I think a lot of times we just don't give ourselves permission to still think and play because we feel like we got to take care of this or take care of that. But life becomes very dull and boring when we stop dreaming. And so we actually have spaces for parents as well. So the way you can support is there is a button that you can donate because it is a free festival because we want to make sure that as many people can come to it. If you would like to be a part of it, we do have a vendors area. But again, if you're not able to do it this year and previous years, you can be a part of it. And then again, we're going to be having these events all throughout the year, like other virtual story times and writing workshops. And so if you are listening, like Sedan, I got really excited about that. Like I would love if we did some kind of like event that brings the worlds together so kids and families can see that. I'm always open to partnership and collaboration. So we can continue to think about ways we can dream bigger. So visit, learn about our festival, but also contact me, contact us. We're always trying to, our vision statement is that we envision a world that's transformed through cultural literacy. And I believe that means we're learning and we're doing things outside of our own bubbles. And so, as much as I can connect with other people, I'm always open to it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Really incredible work what you're doing and
Thank
with these books and these students and everything. An incredible science teacher. Check her out. Like
you. Check
you
me
never know,
out.
you might have
I
her
love
as your new science teacher in September.
it.
So for the viewers out there, if they'd like to reach out to you, where's the best?
Yeah. So if you go to our burstingbooks.org. Like we're Burst Into Books on everything. So if you follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, we are Burst Into Books. Also, if you go to our website and go to Burst Into Books, there is a button that says contact. You can contact us through phone, email. Definitely, we're very accessible. So you can reach out to us through social media, but you can also on our website is all of our contact information as well.
So if anybody would like to have you as a guest speaker, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, the same way. I would just say contact us through our contact form, and then we will get in touch with you. I love like this. Like I love talking all day about anything that's about transforming communities and families and children and education as well. So definitely reach out. Let me know how we can connect. I would love to partner with anyone who is we're aligned in the work we're doing.
So do you have any plans in the future to have like a global event where you have like each different country? Or do you do like any empowerment for girls or anything like that? Because I can connect you with a few people.
Hey now, let's do it, Liz. Yeah. I would love like my vision, right, is that, even with the literary festivals, people will know like I'm a big visionary. So I'm like, ooh, this is this year one day, but we're gonna have a 2 day festival, we're gonna do this. So my vision is that it will continue to grow. And I definitely would love to do some like empowerment things. We actually had a which we're gonna bring back in 2023. We used to host a girl and boys like empowerment event that was really around um, just building community amongst our youth, right? And so I definitely want to bring that back. I will be open. We had some people when we did it who was in other cities like, oh, you should come here with it. And so I'm definitely open to traveling to other spaces and even bringing the world to us. So yes. Let's get the ball rolling. Keep
Oh,
planting.
awesome. I am writing like names down here. I'm like, oh my God, yes. Connect her with her, him.
Yeah,
Like,
I
you
love that.
know, I enjoy connecting people because I find that once I connect you guys and I leave the conversation and whatever you guys decide to do, then that's on you, right? And I think that that's what we need is we just need that push sometimes or that string, that invisible thread of here, connect with this person, that person, and sometimes that's all you really need to do is, draw your line and then remove your line so that the line can continue in a different path, it's taking and giving, so we have to really start giving more and taking less, you know because we have to start giving stronger messages to the children out there. And I really encourage everyone who is listening now and watching the replay later, check out Burst Into Books. It is truly an incredible organization and you are truly incredible, Jurema. I am trying to like, I'm over here like I'm
You got
Jurema.
it. You got it.
For some reason I'm thinking of the maple syrup that goes on.
Oh yes. But you got it. You got it. And I want to also say I appreciate this, and I'm always big about connecting because I believe that we have our skills and our platforms for a reason, and it's bigger than us, right? And so, as much as possible, even with what I do, I try to connect people, network people, because at the end of the day, it's about the impact, not so
Yep.
much about my name or your name getting out there, but just like the impact being made. And so I appreciate you thinking the same way, right? Like, how do I use
Yep.
my resources and connections so we can continue to keep impact going?
Well, and I think that gives a strong message to the children out there, right? that we don't always have to make a big name for ourselves. We just have to connect and make an impact of changing lives together by just taking that 30 seconds or that 2 minutes and just say, hey, I want to know a little bit more. Okay, this is not my cup of tea. This is my cup of tea, And I tell everyone out there, it's not about Miss Liz. It is about the tea. It is about teaching education awareness that we all can make a difference when we start pouring and serving our cups, not my cup, your cup, because you can't serve my cup, and I can't serve Jermaine's cup, even though they are the same. We can't serve our cups the same, similar, but maybe different in a different way. And that's what education is all about, right? Is learning different ways and different aspects and different elements. My brain is just in science mode right now. I'm just like, ooh, can I do?
Look, we can come back. We can come back and talk about science all day. So I'm with it.
So for as a mom to mom, what message would you like to give to the children that are listening from a mom's point of view on Burst Into Books? So take yourself out of the Burst Into Books as the founder and executive director, but as a mom to encourage other moms and children out there.
Yeah, I would just say to all the moms, fathers, that you know what, it really is about you learning together with your child. A lot of times, when I am thinking about my son, we are in protective mode, right? And we want to make sure we have the answers. We want to make sure that we have everything they need, which is important. But they also need to be able to see us experience learning something new. And they also need to see us experience that we make mistakes and what do we do to correct that. And so as much as we are guiding our children, our children are actually guiding us as well, because as we make mistakes and as we learn, we're able to, hopefully provide you with advice as children what to do better next time. And so what I would say to the children is to understand that everything our parents and what your parents do is out of love. And then also the same thing for parents, that it is okay to be humble and to show what we don't know, because we also then teach our children that it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay that even as you get older, you're going to still be learning new things. Because I think that we get to a point when we feel like we can't show that we don't know, but actually that does more damage than good to our kids, because then they feel like they get to a point where if they don't know it, then maybe something's wrong with them, right? So I'm
Right.
always trying to encourage our families that we're all learning together, and it's okay that we sometimes learn from our kids, and sometimes our kids are going to learn from us. But at the end of the day, we're all growing.
Exactly. And it is true, right? We learn from both sides. Just because we're a parent doesn't mean we can't learn from our children. We have to really start letting them lead, and letting follow them for a few minutes and see where they go. Take you on an adventure, you know, um, and getting back into recipes, like the science of cooking. I see
Cooking
something coming
together,
with burst into books, right? The recipe
right?
collection.
Like
Uh,
cooking together with families. I don't know how many of us still do that, but it's really, really great. I mean, one little trick. This is a parent hack, okay? So my son, he's at that age where he explores when it comes to food, but then he sometimes get in a rut with like, I only eat this. I'm not trying it. I'm not gonna try that. But if your child cooks it, they're gonna be a little bit more open to trying it because they feel some ownership in making it. So there's been things where I want to get my son to eat certain vegetables or try a certain type of meal. And if we just went out to eat, he probably wouldn't eat it. But if we made it together, he's more open to it. So I think a lot of times just having our kids be a part of the new experience versus just being like, oh, we'll go to this restaurant. But I think
yeah.
cooking together has multiple purposes.
Well, it also brings that connection, right? It makes the child
Mhm.
feel important as well because mom and dad are taking time to actually, pass the flour, pass the sugar.
Yep.
Oh, let's see what you're going to create. And sometimes they might surprise us. They might put stuff together that we might have thought, ooh. And then we're making that face. We're like, ooh, I don't know.
Right, right,
I don't
right.
know if I want to try that. But it also opens up that connection and that bonding time. Like you said, it's more than just cooking. It's that actual family time. And I think we need that. We're struggling with that. As much as the pandemic gave us time to connect virtually, the family bond also grew during that time as well. So a lot of parents learned a lot about their children during that time because they were like going to school and that. But then when they were home all the time, parents were like, how do we get it going, stay connected and stay communicating and not get stressed out because having everybody around you all the time is like, oh, I don't know. It's like a cracked egg. There's that pressure and then the egg explode.
Yep.
So before we wrap up your tea time, Jurema, I'm going to get it. I swear I will. I will be all day. I will be dancing over here going Jurema, Jurema. So any final words before we wrap up your tea time?
I would just say, I'm grateful for opportunities to be able to talk to anyone because I believe that we are meant to be in community, even if the community is in other spaces and so in other parts of the world. And so um, I I just truly believe that the way we continue to heal and grow as a world is that we are connected to the world. So as much as possible, I know during this time for many of us, it can seem as if like these are dark times, which to be honest, there are some things that are a little dark right now. But
Yeah.
what helps us is that we understand that we do have community and we can have dialogue. And with Burst into Books, my mission is just really to continue to create community. I just so happen to do it centered around literacy. But I believe that whatever you're supposed to do to build community, do that because it's going to help us in this healing process and helping us to be able to have that dialogue that we need in order to move forward. So that would be my last thing. Like think about what community you're supposed to be helping build or be a part of so that we can move forward.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for all these empowering messages today. Like my brain is just on overload. Like my notepad over here has got like a bunch of scribbles on it. Yes, I do take notes when my guests are talking. It kind of encourages me as well and lets me know that I pick up little tools and tips as well as you're speaking. So I want to thank you for that. You gave me some really good tips in that. So life lessons, reshaping your tea, empowerment, building community. These are the messages that I got today with your tea time and I got from you sitting and enjoying tea with me. And I want to thank all of the viewers and listeners that have tuned in and who will watch the replay. Please push hashtag replay and let me know where you're tuning in. If you have any questions, you can reach me, Miss Liz, on my Facebook page or all of my social media platforms. If you'd like to connect with Jurema, check in the description and check on my Miss Liz's page. Her full bio is there. All of her information, connections, all of that stuff is there as well. And it is really important that we keep teaching educational awareness, that we keep opening and sharing our stories. So before we wrap up, we have just less than 2 minutes here. I want to ask you one question before we close up.
Okay.
Have you written a book?
You know what? You're dropping all the seeds. I will have a book that comes out this year. So it is in the process, but I have been more and more within the last few weeks nudged more with that question. So it just means I'm supposed to put the pedal to the metal, okay?
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And thank you so much because I will grab a copy when that book comes out. So let me know when it comes out.
Thank
I
you.
and I encourage everyone to check out Burst into Books. Check out her website. Check out her event on the 30th. And again, thank you so much, Jurema, for joining me today for tea time and sharing your tea. Teaching education awareness. Let's keep teaching. Let's keep sharing and let's keep flowing. So if you would like to be on Tea Time with Miss Liz on Sunday, because my Thursday shows are full, if you'd like to be on the radio show with Miss Liz, you can reach me at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. And I will see you guys this afternoon for the second tea time. That's right. We have two tea times today. So the next one will be at 3 p.m. with BJ Taylor, and it will be an audio tea time due to protection issues. So, but it will be an interesting tea time because we will be talking about the Borderline series. So, there's a lot of things going on that border, so we need to speak and talk about it. So again, thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you at 3 p.m. with BG Taylor for a new tea time to spill the tea.
Thank you.